Welcome back. I began the class with the question, why are we here? At first, it might have sounded like one of those big questions like, why is there something rather than nothing? Or how do we know? Or why should I? But in this case, I wanted to start with the smaller question of why each of us is in a philosophy class. I answered the question for myself by giving reasons. I'm here because I find philosophy inherently interesting. I'm here because I think philosophical thinking is important for citizenship in a democracy. And I'm here because it's my job. I get paid to be a professor, and one part of that is teaching philosophy to students like you. Notice that the reasons that I'm offering are the kinds of considerations that you can recognize as reasons even if you don't share them. You might not find philosophy inherently interesting, and you might not agree with me that philosophy is important for citizenship. But you can still understand that if something is interesting or if it's socially valuable, then those can be reasons to pursue it. So you can recognize that people have reasons even if you yourself don't share those reasons. One way that you recognize my reasons is that those kinds of reasons can be familiar to you even if they're not your reasons for studying philosophy. None of you are the professors of this class, and I'm probably the only one who's literally being paid to be here. But you can recognize that those factors can be reasons. You've probably taken an interest in some things or done something because someone paid you or because it was your job. So as you can see, you already come prepared with the basic skills of giving and recognizing reasons. Across the university, faculty and students spend a whole lot of time asking and answering questions. In particular, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's true or what we should believe about the world if that's different. By the world here, I don't just mean the planet we live on or even the universe we inhabit. I mean, we're asking questions about everything, whatever that is. The process of asking and answering questions about the world is what I'll call inquiry. Philosophy is a form of inquiry, but it's definitely not the only kind. Science and math are also forms of inquiry, and there are surely forms of inquiry that don't have their own university departments. At the same time, people do many things that are not inquiry. Playing soccer, watching movies, and cooking are some of my favorite things to do, and they're not forms of inquiry. Of course, there could be a lot of inquiry involved in learning to do those things, and certainly those activities and their results can be the objects of inquiry. You can study the best ways to play soccer, and people who play soccer may themselves sometimes engage in that kind of inquiry about soccer. But there's a distinction between playing soccer and studying soccer, even if one person can do both. From now on, I'm going to take it for granted that philosophy is a form of inquiry. Doing philosophy requires us to ask and answer questions. But the answers aren't going to be just hunches or biases. We're going to have to find reasons for accepting some answers rather than others. In inquiry, the kinds of reasons we use should be reasons related to the truth or to having good beliefs. Because my mother said so is a good reason to clean your room, but it's not a good reason to believe that electrons have negative charge, unless your mother happens to be an expert on electrons, in which case the reason is not that you were told by your mother, but that you were told by an expert. In the case of electrons, it's her expertise rather than her motherhood that's relevant. Whereas with cleaning your room, her being your mother gives you a reason to clean your room all by itself, even if your mother is Marie Kondo. One sign that because my mother told me so is not usually a good reason for taking something to be true is that we typically require reasons for accepting facts to be at least potentially shared by others. When we provide a reason in answer to a question, there's a possibility that another person can come to accept that very same reason. Because my mother told me so is not the kind of reason that I can share with other people, at least not unless we have the same mother. The kinds of reasons we seek in inquiry are reasons that can at least potentially be shared. So okay, philosophy is a form of inquiry. Later we'll consider whether or to what extent philosophical inquiry differs from other forms of inquiry. But we've already noticed that answering big questions is just like answering any other questions in as much as the answers call for appropriate kinds of reasons. And most importantly for the present moment, we figured out that the kinds of reasons relevant to inquiry are those that can at least potentially be shared by other inquirers. So, in the context of the university, where the primary business is the conduct and teaching of inquiry, whenever we're asked to explain our views or justify our assessments, we're being asked to provide these kinds of reasons. It's not enough to say, this is just what you believe. You have to provide reasons, and reasons are the kinds of considerations that someone else can at least recognize as a reason, even if they don't already agree with you. So let's do some philosophy. I'd like you to read a story about inquiry by Ted Chiang. Chiang is an award-winning Chinese-American author, and if you haven't encountered his writing, you might know the Oscar-winning movie Arrival based on one of his short stories. I'm asking you to read a different story, Exhalation. After you read it and think about it a bit, please take the survey that completes this module.